Zoom. So,
Okay.
but we're basically putting it out there, and then the members can come in when they want and look at it.
Okay, cool.
So great. Okay. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess we'll get started in a minute. The technician is setting it up, and so we'll be
Okay.
ready in a few.
Okay.
I need to get, no, no, okay. I thought I needed something, but I don't. Okay, Robert, let us know. So I guess
Sure.
we might not be getting the intro tonight. So we're just going to start. I want to welcome everybody to our Thursday night Bible class, and we are delighted to have with us tonight Beth Celigento. Is that right, Beth?
You said it right. It's
Celigento.
a G. Thank you.
Celigento. All right,
Yeah.
Beth Celigento. All right, well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Reverend Jeffries.
Yeah. So, just want to talk a little bit about you for a minute.
Yeah.
You are are you native to Seattle?
No, I'm not. I'm actually from New York originally, born in Brooklyn,
Okay.
raised on Long
Okay.
Island, came out here for
Okay.
college to go to Walla Walla.
Okay.
On scholarship and then moved out and lived on Capitol Hill for many years. So I've been in Seattle. I guess I'm a Washingtonian now. I've been here over 30 years. And met my husband and we have a family of two daughters who are in their 20s now. Um, and when I leave the area, I do crave the mountains and the water.
Yeah,
Even gotten used to the rain, which kind of grows on you after a while.
it
So,
does. It does. Yeah.
yeah, we live in a beautiful state. So yes.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful state.
Hmm.
So, you've been here, how long you say?
Oh, over 30 years.
Yeah, I've been here about 35, 38 years myself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So how what field are you in? What do you what kind of
Oh, for
uh
my career, I do human resources. I thought I was going to go into the legal field. There is a lot of law related to human resources. Early career, I worked in the prosecutor's office, kind of came into HR backwards in terms of starting my career out, and we did employment cases, and then started out with my first love in HR, which is recruiting. So yeah.
so how have you found that? I mean, and right now seems like this is a kind of a confusing time for HR people right now. I mean, in terms of trying to figure it all out, what's going on, and how do you
Yeah.
proceed with with your work? Can you tell
Hmm.
us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's really changed a lot. I was on the corporate side for many years, worked for a when I moved out into recruiting, I worked at Deloitte when it was Deloitte and Touche, before it was
Okay,
Deloitte Touche and Ross.
okay,
So worked in the private sector and then went into work in aerospace for Smiths Aerospace, which was British owned. And then the General Electric Company, also known as GE, purchased us. So I was in more of a global role and worked in different time differences and all that, and working at a global company. Um, you really get a viewpoint of different cultures because there's the culture in the United States, there's the West Coast culture, the Midwest culture. We had offices in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We had offices in Ohio. And then the General Electric company's corporate is actually, I think it's still up in Connecticut. That was back a little bit after the Jack Welch days that most people are probably familiar
Yeah,
with that.
yeah,
And they had Crotonville, which was their own internal learning and development university. So that's where I really honed my skills as an HR professional. There was a lot for you to do because you could travel. I had the opportunity to travel. I did international. I dealt with a
mhm,
lot. I dealt with expats in my role even though I was based in Mukilteo, Washington. I had
yeah,
staff on, I had staff that I worked with on the East Coast as well as internationally. And so having the variety, I never got bored at all. Boeing was our main client. Um, Boeing's pretty much 24/7. So my day often started at 5 in the morning. I just happen to naturally be a morning person. Anybody who's on the phone probably knows that about me. They'll get early text messages from me in the morning. And when I was younger, I used to figure skate. So I used competitively. So I used to get on the ice, get up at 3:30 in the morning, be on the ice around 4:15 and figure skate before I went to school. And that's a life lesson right there. The discipline that I got from sports, being
yeah,
in sports and getting up early really helped me with the discipline um, of when I got into the workplace. I remember I had a vice president who came and he used to have staff meetings on Monday mornings at 8 in the morning, which is 5 o'clock in the morning here. And then one time he had to travel here and he's like, you're on those staff calls every Monday morning. You're never late. And I'm like, you called the meeting. I need to be there. But I also let him know, I'm like, I wasn't in the office at 5, right? Like I would do the call and then, dress and leave for the office type of thing. So that was one thing that I learned. Learned a lot about what it means to have a growth mindset, which means, you need to think big and think about um, strategically about what the current state of the organization is, how they're going to grow. Every leader, when they come into a position, they would like to bring their own vision and set of skills with them. But basically, there's some core values. So when you're job searching, don't just look for the big name of the company. Look
yeah,
for the values and that you can see yourself in those values. There's often titles with every job, no matter what job you go to, but the title isn't often a good description of what it's not often very descriptive of what your actual duties might be. Different titles mean different things at different companies depending on the size of the company. I was in a large company, I've been in startup companies, and I've been in medium-sized companies. So those duties and everything can change. Whenever you go into any role, you need to have the knowledge. In HR, they call them KSAs, which stands for knowledge, skills, and abilities. Sometimes there's other characteristics as well. I think in this tight market, you still need to have critical thinking skills. I know that young people want to use AI, and I'm use that as well, but you still need to know how to read the information, think about the information. Does it make sense? Is this something I believe in? Is this a path I want to move forward? Um, there was an acronym when we were at GE called PI, which stood for Performance, Image, and Exposure. So of course you gotta perform because you got to keep your
yeah,
job, right?
yeah,
Then it's also about your image and that the exposure, oftentimes to move to the next role, You need to already be taking on stretch assignments to move into that next role. Um, there's often opportunity to get have a mentor and or have a sponsor. A mentor, someone you usually know about, and you might meet with them once a week. You'll set up some ground rules or boundaries about what you want to learn and how you want to grow, and it's a two-way relationship. Sponsorship is often about, you might not be in the room at all. You might not even know who your sponsor is, but your sponsor might be at the table in the room, and they might say, "Who's a good person to take on that job?" "Oh, I think so and so would be good for that role." And then they can refer them on if they don't feel like they have the skill set to do it. They can help upskill them or uplevel them to help do that as well. I have daughters who are both in their 20s right now, and my younger daughter had two second interviews this week.
Hey,
And
that's great.
yeah, she's trying to, she's been out of college a couple of years. Her last 2 years of college were hard because she was doing it during COVID, and she still has been working pretty consistently, but she's still been kind of contracting, and now she's finally landing some permanent job interviews. And I know she just told me recently, one of the people were like, "You've been contracting. What do you want to do?" And she goes, "I want stability. I want a job where I
Yeah.
can have a career path." And they were one thing is she's had a lot of different types of jobs, and they like that about her. They like the variety of the roles and shows that she wasn't afraid to take on a new role, roles that maybe she didn't have any knowledge about, and then she was able to put that into her toolkit. So we hope to find out that we've been praying for her that she'll be able to land strongly in that arena too. I know it's really hard for a lot of people right now, friends in the federal government, friends who have gone and gotten degrees in the tech industry, and the tech industry has pulled back on a lot of their hiring as well. And I think all of us just have to stay the course. And we know the market will rebound at some point, and we just don't know what that'll be. I think Western Washington has been really fortunate because a lot of times when there's a downturn on jobs in other parts of the country, because we've been in the tech industry, it either hits us later, or we're either delayed and it hits us, or it hasn't been as bad as it's been. But I think we're finally having that happen right now. I know we live in an expensive um part of the country, so I think that plays into whether or not people want to move out here. I mean, the folks who just live here all the time have trouble making ends meet and things like
So,
that.
so
Go ahead.
you are you're very accomplished and very highly motivated. That's just very highly
Yeah.
motivated. And so how did you get that way? I mean, I know you said you were you ice skated. Did you say ice skated?
Yep,
Yeah.
I figure skated.
Figure skated. That yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So what do you attribute to
Yeah.
your being so highly motivated and so strategic in the way you think?
Yeah, so
I know you went to great schools, but that I
so
mean,
I you know, my parents didn't have a lot of money. My mom's the
okay.
14 of 16 children, same mother and
Wow.
father, no duplicates. She wasn't pregnant for the
I
first
come
four
from a
years.
family of 16 children, same
Yep.
mother, father.
And my
Yeah.
mom's just my mom and her sister. My mom's 14, her sister's number 16. It's just the
In New
two of
York.
them
This
alive.
is in New York.
Yeah, she was
In New
born in
York.
West Virginia. She was born in
Okay.
Fairmont, West Virginia.
Okay.
And she was born in Fairmont, West Virginia. And her family was like, you got to be able to survive. You got to be able to make it on your own. My mom would get sent to an aunt of hers who lived in Illinois, and she worked in service work, and my mother would work for her in the summers, and she would watch what the wealthy people did, how they educated their children, how they read out of all 16 children, my mother's the only one in her family to have a college degree. She
Wow.
sent
Yeah.
herself to school while she worked. She had two master's degrees by her mid 30s. She has a master's in education and a master's in library science. And she didn't have a TV. Her family didn't have any money, so she didn't even have a TV, I think, till she was in the 11th grade. But she read a lot, and I think, through reading and having dreams for herself and for her future family, she instilled, that in her. And then my dad was in the military. He went to school on the GI Bill, and he's the youngest of three. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. They spent primarily their adult years in New York and built a family. And my mom always said, work hard, study hard. I worked in high school. I walked all the way through high school. I worked through college. And it was funny. A couple of months back, I think pretty much everyone around here lost their power at some point. And we lost our power. And then we also had a plumbing issue. And so my husband was washing dishes, and my kids said, Dad's washing dishes? And I was like, yeah, your dad knows how to wash dishes. And they were like, really? And because in college, he worked in the cafeteria. So he washed
Yeah.
dishes to put himself through school. So, they always said, if learn how to do it, know how to be self-sufficient and take care of yourself. So I had college loans, and I, you know, set aside my money so I would be able to pay for it. And when we decided to save for a house, we worked multiple jobs so we could pay our loans. We could put money away to buy a house. So, but I think having sports, my husband also played sports. He's first generation college. And we always said to our kids, that we wanted them to go to college. It was a non-negotiable. I never knew where I was going to go, but I always knew I was going to go to college. And my
Yeah.
youngest daughter was a preemie. She was 2 pounds, 12 ounces. And I could still remember she one day she goes, Mom, do you think I'll go to college someday? And I just said, absolutely. I never wavered or let her know that she wouldn't do it. And I didn't even know that I'd have all the money to do it, but the Lord, made a way for us to be able to send our kids to school. And we sacrificed. So we said we wanted to be able to pay for their schooling. And we did do that. We said, we'll pay for your first degree. And we've done that for both of our kids, and we're proud of that.
So yeah, there are a lot of people. Well, there are some people today who are really struggling to try to have that, get that motivation to be able to. You mentioned about having sort of a growth mind, a mind toward a strategy of how you're going to grow, how you're going to move forward. What are some of the things that you would you've said a lot, but what are some of the capsulized things that you would try to tell maybe young and old people right now who may be struggling with trying to
Mhm.
be motivated, trying to get themselves motivated to
Mhm.
resist the temptation just to give up or to throw in the towel or to become
Yeah.
negative, because that's a real thing,
Mhm.
in the world right now, in our community and all over in all communities, that negativity, that whole coming at everything with a negative point of view.
Well, I try to have not a mindset of like, oh, I'm going to go to college. I get to go to college. Having
Okay.
having positive affirmations or declarations, I get to go to college. I get to join you on this call today. I get to run track, or I get to run soccer, or things like that. One thing about when you play sports, I remember one of the first dates I went on with my husband, we ice skated, and I said, I'm going to teach you how to fall down. He was like, What? That's like the first thing you're going to teach me? I go, Yeah, because you got to know how to get up. So you need to be able to know how to get up. And I think you also need to have your cheerleaders around me. I have the girlfriends that I text, I consider them my cheerleading squad that I text in the morning, or
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only human too. I get down too on many things. I also have my faith. And that's, I think, a good segue into when they ask me about my favorite verse. I have so many verses that are my
Yeah.
favorite, but Ephesians 3:20
Right.
in the Message Bible is one of, I love that version, which says,
Let's just talk about that right for a minute. Ephesians
yeah,
3:20.
yeah,
Yes.
in the Message Bible, God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And this verse has encouraged me so much. I do want to say, I don't know that I knew what that verse was about earlier in my life. Earlier in my life, I went to church. I went through all the motions of church. Um, Praise and worship music was always my favorite. So, um, during COVID, I had a playlist. I had a
Mm.
playlist of music that would keep me, being home with your family, locked in and not knowing what's going to happen, if the world's going to end. I had my own personal playlist because often the mother controls, yes, the man is the head of the household, but the mother often controls the mood of the household and the tone. So I had my own personal playlist because I needed to keep everybody motivated. So who is that for you? Maybe it's a grandmother. I know people, maybe they weren't raised by their mother. So maybe it's a grandmother. Maybe it's a neighbor that like I said, my mother learned a lot from the aunt, from the people she worked with, and she was around wealthy families, and she learned about things that she would not have learned about for all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah.
No, I think that those are amazing gifts, the gift of understanding that the word can motivate you, and that you said something about giving the tone in your home
Hmm.
and having a home where there's a peaceful tone or a motivational tone.
Hmm.
And you talked about how mothers or the women in that home, the mothers in that home, give that tone. Could you say a little bit more about that? Because, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Could you say a little bit more about what
Yeah.
you mean by that?
So my mother was very positive.
Okay.
Um, in our home. She was a person of faith, so was her mother, so was my father's mother. Food was very important in our family, even, we probably didn't have everything that we wanted all the time, but we sat around the dinner table for meal times. I know that gets harder if you have multiple children, and maybe you don't have a lot to share, but we sat around the table, we talked, we had Sunday dinner. When we go to my parents' house for the holidays in New York, sometimes we're at the dinner for 6 to 8 hours, just talking about all, the old stories that we need to be
Yeah.
passing those stories down to our children so that
Uh,
they really hear what our ancestors have to deal with. Sometimes we think our lives are so hard, but when you hear what the things that they have to deal with, they couldn't take the bus and they had to walk miles and miles. I
yeah.
remember my husband spent his high school years in Port Angeles, and we took our daughters up there a couple of years ago. And my husband was like, "Oh, I want to show you the route I used to walk to school." Well, it was like 3 miles every day. My kids like they were like, "You had to do this. Like, can't you take an Uber?" Or it's like there was no Uber. If you didn't get on
That
the
was,
4 o'clock bus, there was no
uh,
bus or anything like that. He's like, yeah, he was the oldest of four. His mother was like, I'm coming to school once. I'll come and drop you off or pick you up. If everybody's
yeah.
not ready, you got to walk. Well, he did sports. So after he would spend however many hours doing his sports, he would have to walk home 3 miles. And he would do
Yeah.
that multiple times a week. And
Yeah.
I know I get attached to my phone sometime too, but I think Our kids need to get outside. Back in the day, you used to just go outside. I know safety's sometimes more an issue now, but we would just go outside in the summer and we knew we didn't come in till mealtime.
Yeah,
So we just knew we would do that. Or um we have so many modern conveniences, we take things for granted.
right.
I recently did a trip to DC at the end of the year, and we went to the Library of Congress. So if anybody ever has any time to go to DC, it's free to go into the Library of Congress. And just an interesting fact that I never knew was that was the one place, whether during slavery or during Jim Crow or now, where anybody in the world could go. It didn't matter your nationality, your age, what laws were in place. So often when people who look like us during slavery or Jim Crow would go to the DC area, they would go to the Library of Congress because that's the one place that they couldn't get turned away from. And there's so much history in there as well. But just something simple like the phone books. I met a lady, was in line to see an exhibit or something, and I met this lady who um taught, and she goes, "Oh, I come here all the time." I go, "Okay, so what's the one thing that it's my first time visiting that I should see that I wouldn't know?" And she goes, "Well, you remember phone books?" And my kids again were looking at like, "What's a phone book?" Well, underneath in the archives, they had all the phone books. And
Wow.
so I
Wow.
asked them to take me, they took me kind of underneath the building, and they had shelves with all the phone books. And so I was able to look up where my parents were, and they had phone books from whatever
Yeah.
some of the last published phone books were. And for some people who don't know what a phone book, they might have to go Google it or Chat GPT to know what it is. But before there
Yeah.
was Google, that's how you looked up
That's fun. That's why you looked it up. Yeah.
found things. So,
Yeah.
we need to know our history and we need to pass it down. And I was on a civics call last night, just relearning about elements of the Constitution and all that, because
Yeah.
with our rights being in jeopardy, we need to
Yeah.
know what everything says so that if we have to respond to it, we can do so, efficiently and swiftly.
Yeah. You're right. You mentioned you get up and when you have to do something, you say, "I get to." And I think that
Mhm. Not I have to, but I get to.
that's a very subtle thing, but
Mhm.
it's very powerful
Yeah.
because it goes to the state of your mind.
Yep.
And it goes to the state of your anticipation, whether you're anticipating or whether you're dreading. And
Yes.
those are two things that I think ultimately affect what you do and how you do it and to the what extent you do it. And so I get to do
Yeah.
this.
Just like laundry. I'm probably the primary person in my house that does laundry.
Okay.
I never thought I'd be doing laundry for a whole household,
Yeah.
but I get to have clothes that I can do laundry.
Yeah.
Instead of I
Hey.
have to do laundry, or I
Yeah.
or I have to or I get to drive my kids around to their school activities. I'm glad that they
Yeah.
have activities I can take them to. I get to go to the grocery store and within my budget, pick out the food to feed
Yeah.
my family. I get to get up and go to work every day. Not I have to. I get to.
Yeah.
Because there's the people lined up behind me that would love to have someone who
Yeah.
potentially is homeless. They would love to have laundry to do. They would love to have a budget to go get
Yeah.
groceries at the grocery store. They would love to have a car to drive, or they would love to have their kids signed up for track or soccer or whatever their school activity is.
And
So,
many people would love to have kids. I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's
get to
just
have
it's a
kids.
privilege. It's a blessing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
No, I think that that's a powerful way to look at life. And I think that people should, and by looking at life that way, you also appreciate that what you get to do is a blessing from God, because there are
Hmm.
so many people who don't get to do that, who want to do that. who
Mm-hmm.
want to be where you are right now,
Mm-hmm.
wherever that is. There are people that want to be there, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this: what do you think the role of AI is going to be in the future for HR? I mean, in terms of you know
Yeah.
where in terms of filling that whole place, that whole space, where we'll go in and AI and robots will be telling, handling our problems and helping us to find our way and all that kind of thing. What do you think the role of AI is
Yeah.
going to be in the future?
So full disclaimer, I am not an AI expert at all,
Okay.
but I think we meaning people who look like us,
Mhm.
we need to we need to be making sure chatbots are inputting information that's beneficial for people who look like us. I mean, I think
Yeah,
there is benefit in terms of, I can respond quicker to requests,
yeah,
and think more creatively about it and put documents together. I think that's all beneficial. But I know, what is it, face recognition? I don't,
yeah,
I don't use face recognition. If I change my hair, like I just changed my hair color,
yeah,
or if I change my hair or it's long one day, short one day, wavy one day, it doesn't recognize me. So the primary folks who are putting things into AI are people who don't look like us. But we
yeah.
have a
That's
lot of very intelligent folks who look like us who are
yeah,
technologically savvy.
yeah,
And we need to make sure that they're putting information in that is also going to be a benefit to us, um, as well. I guess that's the best way I can say it for right now.
yeah. That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was looking for. Yeah, I think that it's a whole new world coming. And
Mm-hmm.
it's coming. I remember when they were talking about the cell phones, and then all of a sudden the cell phones were here.
Hmm. Or back in the day for
Yeah,
computers, I can remember taking a computer class in eighth
yeah,
grade, and they're like, "Oh, this is the future," and we were
yeah.
like, "What?" And all of that. So, and I think I still have like one of the first papers I ever did on a computer, and it had that typewriter, more of the typewriter fonts and everything like that, the Times Roman.
I think it's because of that. It's important for what that verse that you were talking about. Let's just read that verse, and for people who may not
Yes.
have their Bibles,
Yeah, I can read it
it's
again. I have it up here.
okay.
So it's Ephesians 3:20. And I also love the amplified version too, but I
Yeah,
chose
just okay,
the message for tonight, which says,
okay.
God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And what I love about it is God really works through us.
Yeah,
Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the biggest challenges and probably really rocking my world, in terms of my faith is I had a brother who was killed tragically when I was 16. And again, I don't think I was aware of this verse at that time. And I
right.
was really angry at God. I'm sure all of us have been angry at God at some time. I went through the motions. I still went to church. Um, I was 16, so living in my parents' house, so I still went to church, but I was really going through the motions of church. Um, and I couldn't understand it at that time, but God and the Holy Spirit really worked through me. And it wasn't until years later, um, that I really understood it. And I think I know in my adult years, and as I had children, and you're praying for your child,
Yeah,
um, you know, the when you're young, the things oh, I want a new pair of sneakers, oh, I want this, I want that. But when you're praying for a life that you
yeah,
helped to bring into this world, both of my children were ill when they were young. My older daughter, um, I mean, we went to the hospital. You pronounced my name correct the first time out of the gate, but we went to Children's Hospital so much. Like they were like, "Oh, you have that complicated last name." Like we didn't even have to show our insurance card. They kind of knew who we were. We were there all the time. And then I think I mentioned my youngest was a preemie, 2 pounds, 12 ounces. So we were in and out of the hospital a lot, but you just pray relentlessly when you're in that situation where you know you might lose your child. And when I think about the pain that my parents went through and I went through with losing my brother, I I don't know that I was praying relentlessly, but I was always talking to God and he truly was listening. And when I
Yeah.
think about this verse moving through me throughout my life, and I was still had the covering all around me throughout my life. And he brought us back stronger. And my older daughter, her birthday's actually the day after my brother's birthday, who passed away. And when that happened, I felt like God was really healing our family because there was a lot of healing that needed to take place. Um, for anyone who's struggling with grief, um, grief isn't something like you turn on like a light switch or water. It comes and goes. It could be, you could wake up and have a feeling. You could hear a song that the person likes, or it could be a milestone type of year. My brother passed away around Mother's Day, so Mother's Day is always really hard for our
This
family.
is, yeah, this is, yeah, yeah,
So, again, verse, but I feel like there was unity and healing, unity of the heart that took place throughout my life. And when I look back at that scripture and reflect on that, and so, and prayer doesn't have to be a fancy thing. It's just a conversation.
yeah,
And and sometimes it's just being still or being silent. I mean, he can read all of our thoughts too. So, and I also think about in terms of advocacy, um, the first time I really learned to use my advocacy voice was I had my very first job, saved my money. There was a store called Lord and Taylor's. I don't know if anybody on the call knows that store. And it was kind of like the ritzy place my mom when I would go to. I guess it'd be equivalent to like a Nordstrom here or something. It's closed now. And I saved my money and I was going to buy this one particular pair of shoes. And the sales lady, I wouldn't even call it she rejected me. She flat out ignored me. She ignored me. She didn't see me or whatever. And I remember going home to my mother and I was, all riled up about it. My mother goes, "What are you going to do about it?" And I was like, "What? What can I do about it?" And she goes, "Well, you could write a letter." And so I wrote a letter to the general manager of the store and got back a letter apologizing profusely. We spoke to the person. And then it also talks about, and they had a restaurant. So they gave us 2 tickets to lunch at the restaurant. And I remember going with my mom, and she always stressed with me, if you have the ability to use your voice for good, use it for good. People should see you, they should value you. If you have the ability to help someone, and help them. And so community service has always been something that's been instilled in our families, and
yeah,
our daughters know that too. My husband and our daughters know that as well.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's a great story. Pain sometimes does um, open us up to a lot of different areas of growth and a lot of different things that we can do, and gives us a lot of strength as we move forward in our life. And that seems like what happens in your case.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just stay in the course, I guess. And that's another case where issue where we should have good parents to keep us
Mm-hmm.
grounded so we
Mm-hmm.
won't sort of drift away during that period of time when we are angry and confused, mostly
Right.
confused.
Yeah.
And you know, so that, yeah, it's
hmm
powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah.
So
God bless to the brokenhearted for sure.
yeah, and brokenhearted. Yeah, like grief is a there are stages to grief, and the grief is something that all of us have to familiarize ourselves with in this life because
hmm
we're going to go through it one way or the other.
hmm
We're going to go through it. Uh,
hmm
yeah, that's so you really had you really have an interesting life. You really have an interesting life, and so what do you think about what do you think about the kind of direction that the country is going in, and how do you see um, people being able to pilot their way through, for example, um, the changes that's going on in the country right now? Um,
Yeah,
I think
it's
I gave
not
you gave an illustration by writing a letter. I mean, not just
yeah.
accepting, not just even tolerating, and going home and being remorseful and ultimately internalizing anger and bitterness. You write a letter, or how would you? That's one way that I think that you've already explained how people can respond to these times. Can you sort of respond to that?
Yeah, so I mean, we need to get out of our comfort zones, right? And we don't and knowledge is power. So I mentioned last night I was on a civics call with a group of about 25 people and we had speakers just to talk about some foundational civics. Civics has been taken out of the schools.
Yeah, yeah,
And I know we're all, you're trying to raise a family, you're trying to work, you're trying to pay your bills, get your car fixed, whatever it is. But if you can make it to the PTA meetings so that they know who you are. My husband and I have always worked, but you talk about lessons learned. My parents always drove us to school. My
yeah,
dad was a retired New York State police officer, so he would drive me to school in the morning and sometimes my mother would pick me up or sometimes we would have to walk home, but my parents knew what was going on in our classrooms and they were up on what was going on in the school, and my husband and I we staggered our work day so we could drive our kids to school. And once again, I remember one time my daughter got in the car and she told me about something, and I called the teacher and she goes, "How could you even know that? She just got out of school." I said, "Because I picked her up from school
yeah,
and we talked
yeah,
about it." So, I know everybody's lives is busy, but we cannot afford not to be in the know about what's happening at school, what's happening in our neighborhood, knowing who our state representative is, because a lot of this starts at the local level.
yeah.
You know, yeah, what's going on nationally is bigger. I don't, we can have a voice there too. But what's going on in my cul-de-sac? What's going on in my school district? What's going on in my county? Um, I can recall a a friend of mine she lives in the same county as me, but someone that her daughter went to school with, the son was being accused of, there was it was just a hot mess for lack of, I
Mhm.
don't even remember all the details. And she said, "I need people to come to the school board meeting." We were all at the school board meeting. Well, the power of your voice, we filled up all of those seats. I think we were on the local news that night. And they did take action. They did take action because of that. So that's a form of advocacy as well, and using your voice for good. I think about our civil rights leaders who are up in heaven, are probably circling around like, okay, we did what we could. We need to get it together. Um,
Yeah,
and so there's power when we all unify together for a common good, for everyone.
yeah, No,
I,
I
I don't
agree.
want to say that there's an easy solution to any of it because it's all
No,
changing every day so quickly. Um, it's changing every day so quickly. And we just need to stay prayerful too, because what we can't do in our own strength, God can do that, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely. That's
we
what
need
your
to put
scripture.
we need to lay that at his feet. We need to lay that at his feet for him to work behind the scenes and cancel the evil assignments and all of that, and then also alert us. We need to
Yeah.
also be listening to be alerted.
What are some of the things that you see yourself doing as 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 you move forward? I mean, you've done a lot, and you've made a major contribution, I'm sure, everywhere
Yeah.
you've been, because you have that mind, that power, or that force of positivity, that force of let's
Mhm.
get this done. Let's get this done. And that I think that that's what
Yeah.
we all need. We all need. That's what the that's what Christ came to give us. He came to give us that spirit that God is going to supply our needs. That we let's
Mm,
get this done. So, what are some of the things that
yeah.
projects or things that you envision that you might want to do going forward?
Not much.
So I don't know that I have an answer for you right now. Actually had a girlfriend call me today, and we were brainstorming about different things. And I think sometimes I react too quickly, and I really want it to be ordained by the Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Beth and Pastor.
and I
Beth,
really want it to
Beth
be
doing
ad-
a Bible
Okay,
study with Pastor.
ordained
She's an
by
okay.
the
AKA,
Lord.
so Anisha got it.
Hold on, just a minute.
Mhm.
You need to
How you
mute
doing,
your
Thursday?
you
Hey,
need to
your mama.
mute your you need to mute
Yeah,
your
I'm
you need to
tired.
mute you need to mute your
Mm-hmm.
you need to mute your phone. You need to mute your computer. You need to mute your computer. 206-941, I think 22073. Mute your computer. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on the legislative level under Gregoire and Gary Locke doing on
Hmm.
the Boundary Review Board. So I've done legislative work, I've
Yeah,
done community service, um, and volunteered. Um, and I have a lot of passion. I was at a school earlier, just a group, the Greater Seattle chapter for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. I'm
yeah,
president of that organization, and we were at Denny International Middle School today.
okay.
And some of the sisters gave an economic empowerment to teach our young girls just about savings and banks and financial
Yeah,
literacy.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I think that's so important to get those to youth. I mean, health is really important for people who look like us. I talked about the challenges my daughters had young with health. So health is important to me as well. But advocacy and public policy really bleeds through all of that. There's the education piece, which is complicated, which is being challenged on so
yeah,
many different levels. Um, for our youth today as well. And we need to look for opportunities around that too. So I don't know that it's just one thing. Um,
yeah,
when I am approached, I try to think of who in my network or how I can move the needle and move it forward. Um, I was on a mentorship call earlier with a friends, two different friends, and each of their sons had a need, and they have similar career goals. One's in the job, one's wants to be in the job, and I was able to bring them together. So I think a shorter answer is my superpower is I'm a master connector.
all
And
right. Okay.
so, if that makes sense,
No,
um,
that makes a
I'm a
lot of
master
sense.
connector, and I've always
Yeah,
been an eclectic person. I don't really
yeah,
like to pigeonhole myself in one way because God uses you in different ways at different times all the
yeah,
time. And so, and maybe it's the direction he wants me to go one day or for a certain period of time. And then maybe, he changes that depending on what the need is. So, yeah, so I guess I'm open and I think it's boundaryless and
Yeah.
we'll see how the Lord is going to use me in the
Yeah.
future.
No, I think that is I think that is a gift, um, to be a connector,
Mm-hmm.
because the opposite of that is disconnector. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that I think that we live in a world where most of us, or most people, are disconnected from
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going forward, we're going to need people who help us find our way, find connections, even with people that we feel that we really disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
There are connections, because we're all sharing this space as human beings. And
Mm-hmm.
when you look at it, we all have similar ways in which we grew up, similar ways in which we struggle, and we all share many of the similar problems. So we need connectors. We need people
Yes, we
who
do.
think like that. How do I bring these realities together rather than to reinforce one over against the other, which
Well,
is
I
what's
think we
going on now.
all have more in common than we don't.
I think we
You
do
know,
too.
we
I
all
think
put on
we
our
do too.
shoes. We all put on our
Yeah,
shoes. We all need to eat.
absolutely. Yeah,
We all need to bathe, clothe,
yeah,
comb our
yeah,
hair,
absolutely.
all of the things. And so everybody should have those basic needs, met. So
I
I
think,
think it joins
yeah,
us.
I'm sorry. No, I agree. I think that our disagreements come around, our illusions or delusions. We come around our expectations or the absence of expectations. That's where we have these disagreements around these big dreams and stuff that we have, whether they are legitimate or illegitimate. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
where most of our disagreements come from. I've been trying to figure out what were the good old days in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I hear people talking about the 1800s when they had the robber barons, you know,
Yes.
and then the Great Depression, and then 40s and 30s, where 30s, 40s and 50s, where they began to also put markets offshore so to bust the unions, to,
Mm-hmm.
to break up the unionization. And I know we got all this hostility against China, but we gave them a lot of that stuff.
Right. Right. For
So
sure.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yes.
And I think that people
Yes.
just jump on stuff without really trying to look at the details
Mm-hmm.
of what they're jumping on, I guess. And that's why
Yeah.
we need connectors, because yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does make sense. It does make sense. And change doesn't always come easy. So it might,
no,
I mean, look at all we went through during COVID. We made it through COVID, so we can make it
yeah,
through this too.
yeah, absolutely we can.
Mhm.
Absolutely we can.
And that was a very,
Absolutely.
very difficult time.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, well, it's been a joy talking to you. I mean, do you have some things that you want to share with some of the listeners who may have children, or who may have career paths that they're trying to think about going into, or uh, who may be on jobs that they trying to figure out, you know,
Yeah.
how to navigate their way through?
Yeah. So, I can remember when I was in the throes of having school-age children and we've approached, empty nester. There's one who's home but is going to be leaving shortly. So it goes really fast. So I say
Yeah,
savor it and enjoy it. Try to find folks who are at the same stage of life as you, because then I think you can brainstorm or, trade babysitting or carpooling or whatever it is, that you need to do and have a support system around that. Keep your children in church, and have a vibrant youth program. The foundational skills, even though I strayed away from church at some point, as I mentioned, I was still talking to the Lord and I had those foundational principles. My kids learned the fruits of the spirit, uh, verse early on, and we still have conversations about that.
Galatians 5:20, 22. Yeah.
Yes, 5:22, and we also use that as a point to for discipline too. I would have them say it and then, okay, stop, let's talk about that. What does that
Excuse me.
mean? So things of that nature. Stay in school. You know, you might, even if you just take one class in school, it might take you years to do it. When I went to get my master's at the UW, they didn't even have the program that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
And I just started taking classes. Of course, the
Yeah.
year after I graduated, they came up with a program, but I
Yeah.
commuted from Everett, I worked downtown, and I went to grad school. And that was
Yeah.
kids. And I did all of that. We need to keep our health. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. There's a poem called The
Yeah.
Invitation, and in that
Yeah.
they talk about your health, and we need to stay healthy because we
Yeah.
want to be around for our children and our grandchildren and
Yeah.
grandchildren. And I see so many young people who don't have, if there's something medical going on, that's a different issue. But I see
Yeah.
so many young people who don't have good eating habits or health and
Yeah.
things like that. So
No, I
yeah.
agree. Those are very important things. Education is very important. And the
Mhm.
thing about today is you don't really have to go. You can be educated through just making sure you get good programming on your computer or something like that. Or,
Mhm.
I mean, education is all around us. I mean, knowledge is all around us, and we just have to, maybe spend less time on Facebook.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not condemning that, but I'm saying that we should spend time trying to just figure out more, get more knowledge into our minds, into our lives, and so that we can, because knowledge is very important
Yeah.
because it helps you really navigate a lot of things. And
Mhm.
the fruit of the spirit, I love that. I love that. That's my favorite thing. And
Yeah, I
I
love
say,
it
I
too.
say, I say, there are two things that people need to take away from the New Testament. One is the Matthew 5, where he talks about blessed are the poor in spirit, and
Mhm.
the Sermon on the Mount. And the other is the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, kindness, goodness. Because those things, I say Matthew 5 is sort of the Magna Carta of what Christianity is, and Galatians 5 is the ethic, it's the moral ethic of what Christianity is. I mean,
Mm.
it is the ethical guideline.
Yes, it is.
And if it's not fitting in that ethical guideline, it might call itself Christian, but it's not really Christian because that's the ethical
Yeah.
guideline, and it's spelled out very clearly in Galatians 22, 5:22.
I know I almost did the fruits of the spirit, but I was like, I'd have to do a whole series because I had so much information about it. So
Well, no, the fruit of the spirit, that's powerful. Maybe next
yeah,
time you come on, if you come on again, you can talk about the fruit of the spirit, because I
I
think
can. I'm ready.
that's
I wrote pages and pages and I was like, oh, we don't have enough time in one session.
no, and it's something that we don't discuss enough. We
Yeah.
talk about being Christians, we talk about being Christ-like, but we define
Mhm.
what that is.
Right.
It's already
Right.
defined. We don't have to
Right.
redefine it. It's already there. I mean, what it
Yeah.
means to be Christ-like, what it means to be a human being, really. I call it being a human being because that's what Christ calls us into, being a real moral human being in
Mm.
this world. And that's really exemplified through the fruit of the Spirit: love,
It
joy,
sure
peace,
is.
long suffering, gentleness, kindness, goodness. Those are the things that you can't make up. You can't pretend those things.
Right.
Either
Right.
either you
And
have
really
them.
you need, and really to get to peace, some sense of peace, you have to have love and you have to have joy.
Yeah,
So,
they all. It's like an
mhm.
interconnected thing.
Yes, it is. It's
Like you
interconnected.
can't just have love and not
Right.
be have peace and joy. Yeah,
Right.
it's all together. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
and that's how we perfect our walk in this world. I think with that guide, but it's just not talked about enough. It's really
Well, I
not, and
think
especially talking to our children. I'm sorry, I got you off. Go ahead.
no, 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 no. Go ahead.
No, I finished. It's just
Well,
not
I
talking
was
about
going
it.
to say when you were talking about like the state of the world, I've really been focusing on trying to have peace because
Yeah,
that's what they want to do. They want to confuse us and have all this chaos and have us
yeah,
spinning. But if you have peace, then God can also work behind the scenes
yeah,
to
yeah.
make the crooked places straight.
Wow, that's powerful. I wish we had talked about that.
Okay,
'Cause
well, we
that's one
can
of my
another time. I
favorite
have
that's one of my favorite things in the world, fruit of the spirit.
okay. Well, I have
And
a
and the Sermon on the Mount. When you said the
yeah.
fruit of the spirit, it just, hit a space, a part of who I am. And
Mhm.
what I believe is the moral teachings of Jesus Christ that
Okay. We'll have to
just
schedule another time. I'm ready. I
yeah,
have
I want to do that. And we just
yeah,
talk about the fruit of the spirit. We did this
we
the whole
can.
time. We just talk about what that means for our world, because I think that's what everybody needs to really come to understand. And it's great that you taught that to your children. It's great
Mm-hmm.
that that's the principle around you disciplining your children. That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful. It's been a joy talking to you,
You
Beth
too. Wonderful.
Salaganto.
Yes, yes. Thank
Again,
you so much. Wow. Reach
it's
out
been great
anytime,
talking.
Pastor.
Huh?
Reach out anytime. It was so
It's
fun.
been Thank you. It's been great talking to you, and I hope that people who listen to this will get. It's just so much that you gave them in
Yeah.
terms of their secular experiences, and then ending it like this has just made it a very, very powerful hour. So thank you,
You're
and
welcome.
hope we can talk again next time about the
Okay.
fruit of the spirit.
I'll be ready. I got
All
all
right.
my notes ready. So thank you so much. Have a great
God
God
bless
bless
you.
you too.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
everyone.
evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.